Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to comment on an article in The Independent by Jeremy Corbyn where he lays out his opposition to a no-deal Brexit, but also sets out his intention in government to still take us out of the EU, albeit with a public vote to decide ourselves. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, in terms of the official Labour position, it was, of course, to come up with what they called a withdrawal agreement that involved access to the single market, of course very important, as well as a few other things, but that was never put into practice because Labour was not able to form a government. So what we've had for the past few years is the Conservative Party trying to do this, even though for most of that time it's been in minority and clearly couldn't get anything through Parliament without cross-party support, which they never supported, or at least they never sought. So now we're in this weird position where the current Conservative government are trying to get a no deal. And of course, the vast majority of Parliament are opposed to that. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is not opposed to Brexit. He wants Brexit, he hates the EU. But the problem is, from his point of view, one, he's not in government. Two, even if he were, there would be as much resistance, in fact more resistance to Brexit from his own MPs than Theresa May found from her MPs for her version of Brexit as well. So what we've got is a scenario where Jeremy Corbyn has now stated, because the position did change. I'll bring you up to where the position did change. For a long time he was resisting committing to a public vote. That has gone now. He's totally on board with that. Fantastic. There is going to be a public vote if he has anything to say about the matter. And it doesn't matter whether that's in this Parliament with a Conservative government, where he has agreed to back Remain if the only alternative is a Conservative form of Brexit. And he's even agreed to state the clear position that we will get a public vote with Remain as an option if Labour were able to form a government, even if they could form a majority government. The issue is that Jeremy Corbyn intends to have a general election as soon as possible, and he intends to win it, which is good, but I'm not really sure how he's going to achieve that. And then what he wants to do, and what he said in The Independent, is he wants to put to the people a more reasonable deal. In other words, Labour's version of the withdrawal agreement. Now, on the face of it, the fact that we're getting a public vote on whatever form with Remain as an option should sound great. Phil, what are you complaining about? That's fine, isn't it? On the face of it is, but here are where the difficulties are that I see. First of all, just going through this process of Brexit has already cost industries in this country permanently. It's cost people their jobs permanently. Many of those people haven't yet lost their jobs, but they know they're going in the next year or two. They're gone permanently. There is no major investment coming into the country, as even British investors and certainly foreign investors are holding off because they want to know what Britain's going to be like in a year or two's time. In fact, there have been people who couldn't put off their investment decisions any longer and have just invested overseas, and that includes British companies. So continuing, because Jeremy Corbyn would then have to go to the EU and says, I want to open up the withdrawal agreement again. And that means a continuing process. That process is still going to take a year or two of negotiating, at least. At least. Remember, it took over a year, about a year and a half, to get the withdrawal agreement that we have access to now. And that basically has nothing in it. That's just, we want to leave. Jeremy Corbyn wants a definite end relationship factored in. That's not going to take less time. That's going to take more time, if anything. So there is this danger that we're still going to be in this limbo. We're still going to be losing that investment. Now, I will at this point make clear that what Jeremy Corbyn will be seeking will be access to the single market. So he says, I hope he means that. As a result, we're not going to put off investors to the same extent that Theresa May and Boris Johnson's form of Brexit had. So it won't be as bad. But it will still be bad. You've got to bear in mind, when the economists have run the numbers on this, even the closest possible relationship that we can have with the EU, a full free trade agreement, but not being members of the EU, is still worse than being members of the EU. Why is that? Because as members of the EU, we're a very powerful member. We'd be one of the 3 main members of part of the largest trade bloc in the world, the largest, most complex union that exists in the world. That's why we will not have that decision-making process. We'll have to follow a load of rules, but we won't get to decide those rules. So we'll actually lose control, even with that Lexit, if we must still call it that. The other concern is this. So we're going to be carrying on with Brexit for a little while longer, albeit a happier form of Brexit, one that's not as bad, and therefore may not put off as many investors, but will still put off some, because until the agreement is agreed, who knows? I mean, those investors may look at it and think, well, what if the Labour government collapses amongst Brexit, just like the Conservative government do, and we still end up with a no-deal Brexit or something? They're not going to be dancing on the rooftops just because the Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn, says we want a close relationship. Until it's achieved, you don't know we're getting it. The other problem is this. How does he negotiate this withdrawal agreement? A couple of years ago, if he'd have won the general election then, he had a number of close allies that he has around him in his shadow cabinet who could have done that. But now, increasingly, even his closest allies, such as John McDonnell, have said they just want Remain. They want Labour to be Remain. They're going to campaign for Remain no matter what. They have said that even in the event of Labour winning a majority government, they're still going to campaign for Remain. So Jeremy Corbyn will find himself in a position of having to go to the EU. First of all, saying, I want to renegotiate the withdrawal agreement, to which they're going to tut a bit. But I suppose, you know, if he's going to be a bit more amenable and cross out all those red lines, they may, who knows, they may, I don't know. But he's got to do that whilst the rest of his shadow cabinet, effectively apart from a couple, are going to be saying, well, I want to Remain. Like the current Brexit Secretary, Sir Keir Starmer, he doesn't want to leave. He can't negotiate it because he won't really believe in it. And the EU will know he doesn't really believe in it. He's got to be so what's he going to do? Get rid of his close allies from the shadow cabinet to get in people who are all for it and will do the work on it? How does that make sense? So that's another problem. You are going to have a very fractured Labour Party because the vast majority of Labour, especially if they end up with a majority in Parliament, and I'll come to that in a moment, they're not going to be happy at the leader now pursuing a form of Brexit now that they've actually got the power to put the kibosh on it, stop it completely. It'll be madness. We'll just end up with the Labour Party fracturing, just like the Conservatives did when in government. You know, the only reason Labour have really held together in any serious way is because they've been in opposition. You don't have as much pressure on you in opposition. And then we come to the other thing. So what about Labour getting a majority government? How are they going to do it? You know, when you look at the current polling and you look at their actual election results this year, how are they going to do it? Where are they going to nick the votes from? The Liberal Democrats are the only people that can really nick the votes off in any major numbers, perhaps the SNP in Scotland as well, but they're not going to take votes off the Lib Dems without being full on Remain. That's why people are voting Lib Dem at the moment. Lots of people are voting effectively for the Brexit position. Lib Dems are fully committed to Remain. SNP fully committed to Remain. Green Party fully committed to Remain. That's it. He can't get their voters off them without doing at least the same. Where does he get the votes from? The Brexit Party, do me a favour, most of those are traditional Tory voters. Jeremy Corbyn's even said himself the form of Brexit that's been pursued is effectively for the wealthy elite. It's a right-wing Brexit. All Brexit is right-wing, come to think of it. So he's not going to get a majority either. The best he can hope to do is to get a minority government where he has to rely on other parties to get through his legislation. But those other parties are not going to support his version of Brexit either. The Lib Dems, the SNP and the Green Party are not going to support any form of Brexit. They're not going to support him in any legislation that allows him to pursue another withdrawal agreement, even a happier one. The Conservatives won't because, you know, party politics, they won't support a Labour form of Brexit any more than Labour supported the Conservatives form of Brexit. So that's the situation we're in. Now, at the point at which this is going to go out, I'll be at work, so I've done this in advance. Jeremy Corbyn, when you're watching this today, will be holding a meeting with those other parties, the anti-no deal parties, which includes some Tory MPs. And I'll be hoping to report on that, later on Tuesday evening, which should be today from your point of view, as soon as news comes through there. But I thought I would just lay out the absurdity of Corbyn's Brexit position now, add my own thoughts into that, because that is going to colour what he intends to do in terms of deposing Boris Johnson. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link. And until next time, I'll see you later.